I was possessed. I saw this red haze, and it feels like at this point that I'm just the observer, just looking out through the window of my eyes. And I am not in full control. This video, I believe, my hardest video for me to actually get out there to the public. Traumatic events happen, some dark periods happen. I decided to date this girl who we'll call Miss B for purpose of YouTube. And I make my first move. Epic fail. The naive confidence that I did have, it was shook. After this period, I started to go into a deeper and darker depression because I liked this girl so much. It was really my high expectations were not met. And y'all probably noticed, but whenever you have high expectations of something and it doesn't work out, it can really lead to big disappointment. But to add salt to the wound, y'all, Miss B kept asking about my friend who we'll call Prince. Prince, like the singer Prince from the 80s. She took a strong liking to this guy because he was really talented and he was also fun to be around. He could dance really well, and apparently Miss B liked dancing because every time he started moving, dancing and moving his body, Miss B's eyes, they were just drawn. She couldn't take her eyes off him. This started to make me really jealous as I liked Miss B, and Miss B was giving him more attention than me. I believe this, combined with all my previous life letdowns, made me more open to the dark side and the demonic. She turned me down. She started to like my childhood friend, which is one of my best friends, probably my second best friend. And all the stuff I spoke about previously in my previous testimony videos, all the darkness, all the failures. I was about 24, and just all the bad stuff in my life just started to pile up on top of each other. And it was just growing into this ball of depression for me. And I believe that's all that growing together led me to seek out and to be more open to the demonic realm, the occult, go further and deeper into that. I actually was already into the occult, but I think this just opened me up to the straight satanic kingdom, basically. The experiences that we have in our life, particularly the dark ones, can definitely lead somebody to become a much darker person and open them up to evil, and that doesn't have to be the case. But for me, somebody that did not have the Holy Spirit, it made it much easier for that to actually happen.
Love won't save you, Padme. Only my new powers can do that.
At what cost?
But back to Prince. After a couple times of Miss B and me going out, Prince moves back to Warner Robins, hometown, where we're at. This guy, Prince, he was all over the place. He was living in Atlanta, and then he would go back to Warner Robins. He doesn't stay in one place for whatever reason. But now he's back, and Miss B keeps asking about Prince, which really gets on my nerves. I'm like, why are you asking about this guy? It was just me and you hang out. That's what I was wanting to happen. That's what I was thinking. Just me and her, just focus on me. Miss B. But me and Prince were still cool. So even though I was aggravated by Miss B always asking about Prince, I still invited Prince. I said, hey, let's all go hang out, man. You, me, and Miss B. But here's the thing, I noticed after that, Miss B and I didn't hang out too much together on our own. And when all three of us were together, I felt like the third wheel. Never a good feeling, if you felt that before. But now I've heard rumors that Prince was not into women. Basically he was into guys, or not really into the opposite sex too much. For whatever reason, I didn't know what to think, because I haven't really seen him date and talk to women, actually be romantic. Maybe he's a late bloomer with that. And Prince also had a big feminine side. He was really into fashion and really liked Beyonce a lot. Obsessed over Beyonce. But regardless of the rumors, I still felt like Miss B liked Prince. And one time I really began to notice this. We were all just hanging out one day, probably smoking and stuff. We went to this clothing store just to find something to do. So we go to a clothing store because that's what you do in a city that doesn't have that much to do. You just go to a random place. Miss B and Prince are just giggling and laughing and roaming around the clothing store together. They're inseparable. And I'm just in the clothing store, kind of just walking around by myself. Miss B is tagging along with Prince and is never near me in the store. And I just start feeling okay, she's always by his side and she's never really by my side, just hanging around me. So in the clothing store, the realization kind of set in more. I started getting depressed more. And I remember being in that clothing store and just feeling like my heart was breaking. And I can't say exactly why I had that feeling, because I was more lusting after Miss B than in love with her. I did really like her and I really wanted to be with her. I think it was just the depression that I was experiencing. Like nothing was going my way and things just seemed dark. And my childhood friend was getting more attention from this girl who I liked than I was. It was just a hard situation for me to deal with. But one time we had all smoked and then we went to my dad's house to watch a movie. We sat on this long couch and Miss B and Prince sat next to each other. And I was thinking that Miss B would be sitting in the middle between Prince and me, but no. Miss B sat on the opposite end. So I was on the left end of the couch. I was like at the end of the couch. Miss B was on the right, towards the right end of the couch. Prince was in the middle, and Miss B and Prince got this blanket that they put over their legs. It might have went up to their chest or something, but the blanket just covered him and Miss B. And at this point, I saw that as cuddling, like they're both under the blanket together. Their arms are under the blanket. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, we were all high. We decided to watch Beetlejuice, which if you don't know what that is, it's just like a Halloween type movie. I'm uncomfortable because I'm watching one of my best friends, my childhood friend, basically cuddle up with the girl who I really desire to be with under the covers. And on top of that, Beetlejuice was not the move. It's like mixing being high with the movie about death and being depressed because you're watching somebody who you call a friend cuddle up with somebody who you want to be with. It all just mixed together and just made me super depressed and uncomfortable. I had to leave the room. I didn't know what they were doing under the covers. I had a hunch that they might have been doing something sexual under the covers. That was just something that I felt like I had an intuition about. The reason why I thought that is because their arms were under the covers too, and they stayed under the covers the whole time. So I was like, they're doing something, you know, with their hands under the covers. I'm not gonna go into detail, but I could not be in that room anymore. So I decided to go to the bathroom, and I was in the bathroom for about 45 minutes. Kind of like made an excuse, like I gotta go to the bathroom. I wanted to wait till the movie was done. But y'all, once that like 45 minutes was up and I'm like, okay, the movie's probably done, I decided to go back into the room. That was a bad decision because when I walked into the room, I caught them in the act of a sexual activity. It was dark, but I could tell something was going on. And when I get back into the room, I hear Prince yelling. He's like, no! And I'm like, what? Like, why are you screaming no? And it didn't hit me because I didn't see anything yet. The room was dark. And then I'm not gonna go into detail about what happened to me because it's gross and it's relating to something sexual, something defiling. I was defiled and I was scarred. And in that moment, we all were embarrassed, but I was the most embarrassed because the defiling really happened to me. It was focused on me. But even after having this happen to me and seeing, because I could still see, like my eyes adjusted and I could see Ms. B had no shorts on, no underwear on. She had a shirt on, but she didn't have anything covering her bottom half. So I'm like, okay, that's weird. And they were trying to play it off in the situation like, this is not what you think it is. Like they're just playing a game. And I'm just like, no, I know what I see, I'm not dumb. But y'all, I kept on drilling in that something happened between y'all. This is not a game, like something happened. I experienced it, like, how are you gonna lie straight to my face in the middle of it happening to me? So eventually they acknowledged that, hey, something happened. They didn't really say like, we did this, but they kind of like shook their head like, and then we're all just sitting down and I get really serious. I'm like, hey, y'all, this never happened. This never happened. And they all kind of just agreed. They didn't say anything. I don't think they said anything. They were just like, that whole experience was traumatizing for me. But after that point, y'all, it was like we all just forgot about it. We all like agreed to forget about the thing. But I still had memory about it. It's like it went back into my subconscious. It was there, I had the memory, but it wasn't like to the foreground, to the front of my head. Like I wasn't always thinking about it. It was like a slight, subtle memory that I had. But I guess I got tired of denying and trying to purposely forget about the situation. And I asked them about this about a year later, and they denied that it even happened. I was like, remember when y'all did this? And I asked them separately, and they both said, what? We never did that. That never happened. And I'm just like, I was there. Yeah, it happened. Like, why are you just denying it? To me, another person in the situation. But I will say though that the memory definitely got pushed back into the recesses of my mind. And it's crazy that how that happens when you experience something that's traumatic. It seems like the memory isn't to the forefront of your mind anymore. It gets pushed back, and sometimes you start to forget it or you barely remember it. It's like a very subtle remembrance. To me, it's just crazy how the mind does that. Something it doesn't want to remember, it just pushes it back. Yeah, I'm gonna be glad and happy when I'm done with this testimony series. I'm like really looking forward to the future, to doing other videos, but it's just so much in this testimony, y'all. And I have to get it out. I have to get it out. God told me to. So that's why I'm doing it. And I know it's gonna help other people out there, but it's just a lot to talk about. Who really wants to talk about the dark periods of their past? Most people it's not like the first thing they want to talk about. It's like, ooh, let's talk about my depressive past. But it's not about me. But soon after this traumatic event, I went back into super simp mode. For Miss B, you're probably like, how did you go back into that mode? How did you go back into wanting to be with her after that experience? That's just how I reacted, y'all. I was just a sad person. And I think part of it though was the jealousy and the motivation to be with Miss B and to kind of battle Prince over Miss B. Like, Miss B is going to be mine. I'm going to take her back away from you. And the thing is, I never had Miss B, so I can't take her back if I never had her. But what I mean is to have the attention back on me, because at first it was just me and Miss B hanging out, and now Prince is in the picture, and now it's Miss B and Prince. But I was being desperate, and men are taught in movies to be desperate. Men are just taught to be these simps that just will do anything, even just, demoralizing or doing something that's gonna disrespect themselves in their manhood just to seek a woman, just to be with a woman.
My love, I can't bear this hardship of loving you from afar. It is too difficult. Your rare beauty will be by my side. To be together, sailing the seas.
And I'm not saying it's wrong to put effort into being with a woman. What I'm saying is that there's a point to where you're doing too much if you are neglecting your own best interests as a man. But the relationship dynamic with me and Prince changed. We were childhood friends. He was like my second best friend. One of my best friends, I don't know if I like to quantify how high the best friends go, but A-Dog was my best friend. Prince was my other best friend. But now me and Prince were kind of like, well, I saw this. This is how I kind of saw it and felt. That me and Prince were kind of like enemies. And I didn't show it. I wasn't like aggressive towards him or anything. But in my head, I'm like, Prince is the guy that Miss B wants. I want Miss B. And that dynamic created conflict and drama. And it just could not be the same of how it was in the past. The innocence of the friendship that me and Prince had, it was essentially gone now because we had drama over a woman. But for Valentine's Day 2017, I bought Miss B this big stuffed animal. It's just a pillow, but I just wanted something to kind of show like it was huge, way bigger than this. It was almost like the size of a toddler, essentially. This giant stuffed animal, the biggest stuffed animal I could find. And I actually dropped it off at Miss B's school. And my plan was that my gift would draw large amounts of attention from her friends. And her friends would start asking like, ooh, who's the guy that got you this? This is amazing. And start getting her to think about me and to just feel better about me. But my plan backfired because after she got out of school, I was like, so how would you like her gift? And I told her I really liked her. And then she was like, I do not see you in that way. And up until this point, she never directly told me that. She never directly told me that she didn't like me. That really got to me and I just didn't want to accept that. But kind of switching gears a little bit here, starting in late 2016, which I kind of talked about in the last segment, my new goal was to be a rap star. I talked about how I started developing this talent to rap and just to rhyme in my head. And I started to make this my goal. And I started to buy equipment for a home studio to be ready by New Year's 2017. But just the idea of the future of me being this famous rap star. It went to my head, and I figured if I get famous, she would definitely want to be with me at that point. But I ended up deciding to make a love song about Miss B. I thought I could impress her by using music and using the law of attraction to make her like me. So I was essentially doing sorcery with the music. I was believing and wanting to make a song about me and her to attract her to me. And I believe making the song and completing it would put it out there in the universe that Miss B needs to be with me, and it's gonna be like a magnet drawing her to me. But around this time in 2016, probably late 2016 and 2017, it definitely felt like demonic portals were opening up in the world, and just everything was getting much darker. I don't know if any of y'all have experienced this, but this was my experience. And it might just be because I was smoking weed and high, and I also wasn't saved. So all that combined could have just been my personal experience. And I remember Miss B and I went to these apartments to smoke again. And I had these abnormally lustful and wicked thoughts towards Miss B. And I won't go into detail about the exact thoughts, but just know that they were very, very dark. And I think I even prayed that I would not even act on the thoughts that I was having because of how messed up they were. But those wicked thoughts eventually subsided. And when we smoked and I got high, I felt like I had the realization that I was trapped and that the world I was in was under the rulership of hell and this evil being. It was almost like I could hear the frequency of hell. I looked at the sky and I was looking at just the clouds and the moon, and just the way the clouds were formed and everything. It was just super creepy. It was almost like the clouds were making like this demonic formation in the sky. It was eerie, and it was like a revelation of where I was. Like, I'm in this world and I feel trapped, and I feel like there's this evil force that's governing this world, and that's governing my ability to be free from it. And I was actually pretty on point. I was pretty on point because the Bible says that the devil is the ruler of this world. It's temporary, but he's currently the ruler of it until Christ comes back in the second coming. And it's almost like the revelation I had was, this is the type of person you are, and this is the world you're in, and you belong here because of the type of person you are. All this lust and dark thoughts is in you, and it makes you belong here in this world that's under the rulership of hell. But back to the love song I was making, y'all. As soon as I finished it, I decided that Miss B must hear it that same day. So I started getting these dark satanic thoughts again, that if I didn't get with Miss B soon, I would remain trapped in this hellish dimension. And that's kind of how I looked at it at the time. I was like, I'm in this dimension I'm not really supposed to be in, but I'm trapped here, and I'm trapped in this little hellish realm thing, and I need to leave it. So I started to look at Miss B, and these are the thoughts going through my head, that she's my only way out of this hell. I started to look at her as my savior, and that I need to make it work with her romantically, or else I would remain trapped in this hell. And I just want to say that Satan tricks you in this way. He uses this tactic to make you think that you have to force things. You have to do this or else. You have to do that or else. You have to get with Miss B or else you're gonna remain trapped. You have to do this or else you're going to die. And this creates super amounts of anxiety, and Satan has got me on that so many times in the past by making me think I had to do something. And it usually makes you think you have to do it immediately, and you have to force it and rush it, or else something bad's gonna happen. But y'all, at this point, Miss B stays in an apartment with her mom. I get to her apartment and I feel like I'm being taken over. And I notice this red haze overtaking my vision. And it feels like at this point that I'm just the observer, just looking out through the window of my eyes. And I am not in full control. But my goal was to get Miss B to come back with me that night. It was a school night, to come back with me to my house to show her this song, because it was ready. And I could tell Miss B really didn't want to go, and I could also tell that her mom didn't want her to go, but I just really didn't care. And being that it was a school night, Miss B was tired and her mom wanted her to stay home, but I was being super annoying, and I wouldn't stop coming up with reasons and explaining reasons as to why Miss B needs to come with me tonight. I was telling Miss B and also telling her mom, I was like, Miss B has got to come. Like, I gotta show her something. It's a surprise. She has to see it tonight. It can't wait. And I kept on like explaining it and just being super annoying. I wouldn't let up. And I kept pleading with both of them until I got a yes. But y'all, they had like a 1-bedroom apartment. And when I was there, I didn't really care about their free will choice. And I think I had the realization at the time that whenever I didn't really care about somebody's free will choice, that's when I would get that feeling like I'm being possessed. This possession would happen when I just cared about my own will and what I wanted and didn't care, just disregarded about what somebody else wanted to happen or didn't want to happen. Like, I believed that I needed to show Miss B that song that night. It was necessary. So I wasn't respecting their free will because I knew Miss B was tired. She was acting like she didn't want to come, and her mom wanted to stay home because it was a school night. But the thing is, God gave us free will. He wants us to have that. So whenever you don't respect somebody else's free will, you are in violation of God's will. And if you are in violation of God's will, that opens you up to being controlled by the devil's will. And I'm trying my best to describe what happened to me. It was so freaky. This is the first time I ever noticed this happening to me. But my will was such a priority. It felt like I was being taken over by like this beast-like creature. And that's actually what the devil is. He's described as a beast. But I was being taken over, y'all. I was possessed. I wasn't like fully like gone, like 100% had no control. I still had something, like some part of me that was in some control. But for the most part, y'all, I was being possessed. But I saw this red haze. It was like the atmosphere of the room. It was just weird, like, you know, Stranger Things kind of, when the atmosphere changes, the air changes, it looks different, it looks like darker and grayer. But I saw this literal red haze, y'all, like the movies, like the cartoons. When you see a demon-possessed person have red eyes, that's literally what I had basically, because what I was seeing had this red tint, this red haze around it. And this force had control over my body, y'all. Like I said, it felt like this beast was inside of my body. I think the best way to describe it is I was becoming a monster. And my will, the human will that I have, is becoming decreased. And the will of this beast is becoming increased in my life and actually in my body. Because I was just walking around that apartment, that 1-bedroom apartment. I was walking around the living room, the kitchen, just talking to Miss B and her mom. And it just felt like I was having less and less control over my body the more I was trying to plead and manipulate them into getting Miss B to come back home with me. It felt like what I was turning my head at and moving, I'm like shifting my body. I'm like, okay, I need to go over here by the couch. I need to look over here. And I'm like almost noticing something else in my body kind of making me move. And it's super freaky, y'all. It was super freaky. And this is my first time experiencing it. And I'm like, what is going on? But I knew something was happening supernaturally. I knew that. The best way to describe it, I guess, was this aggressive force kind of leading my movements. I moved my body like walking this direction. I'm like, whoa. Moving fastly and aggressively, kind of like a beast-like creature. Just moving around the room in the apartment, just not really having control. Turning around kind of fast, like aggressive, like I'm not calm, you know, just moving around the room. And it's so hard to explain, but kind of picture like a stray dog, right? You're in the house, they bust in the house, they're trying to find food, and they're scared because they see you, and they just bust in the house, they're kind of hurt, they have wounds, and they're kind of moving around the house like a beast. They're hungry, they're scared, they're just like moving around the house kind of fast, aggressively. That's what I was doing, and I was seeing this red haze, looking out my eyes, feeling like I'm just observing everything. I'm observing me talking and moving, and it's crazy. So it finally works, my manipulation finally works. I get her to my place. They finally give in because I won't let up. I'm like, she has to come. Like, this is a surprise. I gotta show her. I think that's what I use. I'm like, I have to show her it's a surprise, and it's not gonna work if I wait till tomorrow. I have to show her today, tonight. So I get her to my place. I show her this cringy song that I made. And then right after it's done, I move in to kiss her. and I get rejected instantly. But yo, I had this all planned out in my head. I'm like, I'm gonna show her this song, I'm gonna make her this song. It's going to arouse her. It's gonna get her to see me in a new light. It's gonna touch her heart and actually cause her to have feelings for me. Part of the song, I did say nice things about her, but another part of the song, I was saying really perverse things in the song too. So it was like filled with lust, but it also had kind things to say as well. It's like mixing these things. And if I really loved her like that, there would be no lustful and perverse things in that song. But with that song, y'all, my goal was to initiate that romantic interest in her. But it did not work out. But in the next segment, you will want to stay tuned for that, because I started smoking weed even more daily at this point. I literally go crazy, and I begin to flirt with the idea of worshiping Satan himself. I will definitely go deeper into how weed ties into all this and how God does not approve of smoking marijuana. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell notification to stay updated with all my videos. Like this video, give it a thumbs up for the algorithm to help push it to more people that need to hear this message. And you can check out my playlist right here. Check it out, 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 check it out.